budgetary account. So I'm the first reporter in chapter 4. So if you call about accounting for budgetary accounts, formally commences upon enactment of the General Appropriation of Act, which contained a legal authorization to use public money for the various program activities and projects of the national government. The approved appropriations are in turn the basis of Department of Budget and Management, or DBM, for using allotment of or the authority of government agencies to incur obligation to enter the commitment to spend government fund. The level allotments, on the other hand, define the amount of cash allocation which shall be released by the DBM. So, accounting system. The account The General Accounting Plan, or GAP, showed the overall accounting system of the government, agency, and unit. Includes the source document to follow the instructions and its accumulations in the book of account, and finally the conversion into the financial information data presented in the financial reports. It's the following accounting systems are budgetary account system. So dapat na account ang sa mga sa sa pag-budget dapat nadyo na sila account. Resibo, income, and deposit system. Disbursement system, financial reporting system. So next is fundamental principles of fiscal operations. So budget activities are governed by legal provisions of fundamental principles relating to financial transactions and operations of governments. So, relate ni siya sa mga transactions sa government, sa mga operation nila. So, the principle as provided for by the law are 1. No money shall be paid out of public treasury to depository except in the pursuance of the appropriations law or other specific statutory authority. 2. Government fund the property shall be spent or used solely for public purposes. 3. Trust funds shall be available and may be spent only for the specific purpose for which the trust was created. Fiscal responsibility shall, to the greatest extent, be shared by all those exercising authority over the financial affairs, transactions, and operations of the government agency. 5. Disbursements of dispositions of government fund or property shall invariably bear of approval of the proper officials. 6. Claim against government funds shall be supported with complete documentations. 7. All laws, regulations applicable to financial transactions shall be faithfully adhered to. And 8. Generally accepted principles and practices of accounting as well as of sound management of fiscal administration shall be observed provided they do not contravene existing laws or regulations. So, next, the national budget. National government budget is a plan for financing the government activities for a fiscal year prepared and submitted to by a responsible executive to a re- representative body. Those approval and authorization are necessary before the plan can be executed. It is defined proposal, estimate, the statement of receipt, and expenditures that may be approved or rejected. Rejections shall represent details demonstrations of the revenues expenditures of the government for the past and ensuing year. They shall furnish not be defined information regarding the general character, proposed, and amount of government expenditures, but also details data. Department of Budget and Management threshold and ensure that public resources that manage more efficiently and with the greatest degrees of discipline. It is not only crucial to channel resources a program that accelerate economic growth, but more importantly, to direct fund to program that will be responsive to the need of people, especially those who region visit by property. PNB. Ay, pwede. PIB. Performance enforced budgeting, which required the government agency to strengthen the link between planning and budgeting and to simplify the presentation of budget. With the adoption of PIB is a budgeting scheme of government is changing the face of the budget. Previously, a mass of numbers aligned themes without a clear story on where a fund are going, the national expenditure plans, and the general appreciation acting beginning of 2014 will show the link between a fund of
Good morning, everyone. I will continue the report. Balanced budget. Balanced budget is a budget in which revenues are equal to expenditures. Thus, neither a budget deficit nor a budget surplus exist. More generally, it is a budget that has no budget deficit, but it could possibly have a budget surplus. Example, if Michael and Jessica being home $75,000 a year but only spend $70,000, then they have a balanced budget because their expenses are equal to or less than their income. In this case, they can use the extra $5,000 in their budget to pay down debt or reach their savings goals. Balanced budget revenues whose revenues are equal to or greater than total expenses. A budget can be considered balanced after a full year of revenues and expenses have been incurred and recorded. Proponents of a balanced budget argue that the budget deficits burden future generations with a debt. That's the balanced budget. Double tap to our title. As to approach and techniques. According to Edward Anthony's model in 1965, approach is the level at which assumptions and beliefs about language and learnings are specified. Method is the level at which theory is put into practice and at which choices are made about the particular skills to be taught, the content to be taught, and order. Zero-based budgeting. Is a method that has allocate of your money to expenses, savings, and debt payments. The goal is that your income minus your expenditures equals zero by the end of the month. You can repeat expenses, categories, and amounts every month or mix it up. So, incremental approach. Based on the principle that those involved in a project should at the outset focus on the key business objectives, so that the project is to achieve and be willing to suspend detailed consideration of the monetary of a selected solution. So, example, so assume a company sells an item for 300 pesos dollar. So, the company pays $125 per labor, $50 for materials, and $25 for variable overhead selling expenses. The company also allocates $50 per item for fixed overhead cost. So, kinds of budget. So, money spending comprises for the segment to receive payment, money surplus or shortage, and transfer area. So, annual budget. Yes, it is a plan for a company's projected expenditures area the course of a year. Annual budget acts and the benchmarks against which an individual or company can measure progress and as tools to help better manage money. So, supplemental budget. So, provides additional funding so those areas where deficiencies were found. So there is no limit to the number of supplemental budget that the governor may request in a first fiscal year. So special budget. So this are typically established when individuals or entities providing funding or a particular program or service have restricted the use of those funds for that program or services. Yes, that's the kinds of budget. So double tap to add title. So OE. So Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. So it is an international organization that works to build better policies for better lives. So GAS, General Appropriation Act, is are the most important legislation that Congress annually passes. Yes. So program activities and projects, it's called POPs, major financial outputs, MPOS. So OPIF, so Organizational Performance Indicator Framework. So it is one of the two components of the public expenditures management. So PEM being implemented by government of the Philippines.
So the budget cycle. A budget cycle is the life of a budget from creation or preparation to evaluation. Most small businesses don't use the term budget cycle, but they use the process and go through each of its 4 phases. So the first phase is the budget preparation. So this covers estimation of government revenues, the determination of budgetary priorities and activities within the constraints imposed by available revenues and by borrowing limits, and the translation of approved priorities and activities into expenditure levels. So estimates are prepared by the various government agencies, reviewed and finalized by the President of the Philippines, and then submitted to the Legislative Department as basis for the preparation of the Annual Appropriation Act. So, a full understanding of the budget planning and preparation system is essential, not just to derive expenditure projections, but to be able to advise policymakers on the feasibility and desirability of specific budget proposals from a macroeconomic or microeconomic perspective. So, meaning the budget preparation is a process with designated organizations and individuals having defined responsibilities that must be carried out within a given timetable. So, the proposed budget is presented by DBM together with the DBCC to the President and Cabinet for further refinements or reprioritize. After the President and Cabinet approve the proposed National Expenditure Plan, the DBM prepares and finalizes the budget documents to be submitted to Congress. The budget preparation phase ends with the submission of the proposed national budget, the President's budget, to Congress. The President's budget consists of the following documents, which helps legislators analyze the contents of the proposed budget. First is the President's budget massage, or the PBM. So this is where the President explains the policy framework and priorities in the budget. Next is the budget of expenditures and sources of financing. Mandated by the Constitution, this contains the macroeconomic assumptions, public sector context, including overviews of LGU and GOCC financial positions, breakdown of the expenditures and funding sources for the fiscal year and the 2 previous years. Next is the National Expenditure Program. So this contains the details of spending for each department and agency by program, activity, or project, and is submitted in the form of a proposed General Appropriations Act. And the next is the details of selected programs and projects. So this contains a more detailed disaggregation of key programs, projects, and activities in the NEP, especially those in line with the National Government's Development Plan. So the last is the staffing summary. So this contains a summary of the staffing complement of each department and agency, including number of positions and amounts allocated for the same. So the second phase is the legislative authorization, or the budget legislation. So it is the second phase of the budget process relative to the enactment of the General Appropriation Bill based on the budget of receipts and expenditures generally submitted by the President of the Philippines within 30 days from the opening of its regular session. As the basis of the General Appropriation Bill. However, as mentioned earlier, in contrast, the submission of the President's budget is a day after the State of the Nation address. So this is to ensure that the national budget is enacted on time. This phase starts upon the receipt of the President's budget by the House Speaker and ends with the President's enactment of the General Appropriation Act. So, meaning, as the term suggests, legislation is the process of making the proposed budget into a law, just like any other legislation.
Good morning, everyone. So this is the continuation of Meraflor Tutor's report. Number 3, budget execution and operation. The third phase of the budget process covers the various operation aspects of budgeting, thus making budgeting as one of the principal tools of management control to ensure that public funds are spent only for the specific purposes for which they are intended. It includes the development of the operating budget, which indicates the program of work to be done or undertaken, the time within which it should be done, the manpower and other resources needed to carry out the work, and finally, the peso amounts required to accomplish the proposed program. So, budget execution is the process of monitoring, adjusting og reporting sa kanang current year's budget. Mao na ang budget execution. This phase of budget cycle begins with DBM issuance of guidelines to the release and utilization of funds. Agencies are required to submit their budget execution documents or bids at the start of budget execution. These documents outline agency plans and performance targets. ARP or Allotment Release Program. So ang ARP or Allotment Release Program is a set of limit for allotments issued in general and to a specific agency budget under the GAA as well as automatic preparation o mauna ang Allotment Release Program. So, CRP or Cash Release Program is kanang fixes the monthly, quarterly, and annual disbursement level. Muna ang kanang CRP. Ang allotment kay may be released sa duha ka forms through a comprehensive agency budget matrix or EBM or individually by SARO. Mao na ang Allotment Release Program o Cash Release Program. EBM or Agency Budget Matrix, SARO or Special Allotment Release Orders, GAM, Government Accounting Manual. The new obligational authority includes GAARD or General Appropriation Act Release Document, SARO or Special Allotment Release Order, and lastly, GARO or General Allotment Release Order. Number 4. Budget accountability. So, the budget process of course does not end with when government agencies spend public funds. Each and every piso must be accounted for and ensure that it's used properly, contributing to the achievement of socio-economic goals. This phase happens alongside the budget execution phase. Through budget accountability, the DBM monitors the efficiency of funds utilization, assesses agency performance, and provides a vital basis for reform and new policies. So, muna ang accountability is a significant phase of the budget cycle because it ensures that the government funds have been effectively and efficiently utilized to achieve the socio-economic goals. Mao na ang budget accountability. These performance measures are set alongside the preparation of the nation budget, and these are indicated in the Organizational Performance Indicator Framework or OPIF Book of Output. MPBF or Miscellaneous Personal Benefits Fund are for compensation adjustment under the Salary Standardization Law provision for unfilled position and employee clothing allowance. Muna ang Miscellaneous Personal Benefits Funds. APARs or Agency Performance Reviews are conducted quarterly or every semester as the case may be. So, una ang APARs. Next is BPAR or Budget Performance Assessment Review. It's conducted to determine each agency's accomplishment or performance by the year end. The DBM regularly reports results to the President. Lastly is COA or Commission on Audit. Nonetheless, auditing is critical in ensuring agency accountability in the use of public funds. So, mauna ang budget accountability. That's all. Thank you. The next reporter will be Arami Kotanda.